Hey guys, we are back updating the power rankings for Australian Survivor Heroes vs Villains following week 7, and we are getting towards the end game now, so because of that, I feel like a lot of these opinions are solidified, and we don't have that many people to talk about, but there's still some intrigue coming into this end game that could definitely shake up who the contenders are, but there are 7 players to talk about, and let's not waste any more time, let's get right into the video. So starting off at number 7, we have the boot from this week, but here we have Haley, who was blindsided here. And I know there were people that were saying that after Shawnee was voted out, that she was probably the next most likely winner. And there was some setup towards her flipping against George. However, even then, she doesn't actually do so by the time of the vote, where she does go along with this split vote plan to take out Nina or Liz. But I feel like this wasn't really going to amount to much, as even last week I was saying that with Haley's drought in content up until that point, I didn't have much confidence that it was actually going to work. And I felt like it was just setting herself up to be one of the next few boots. And sure enough, that's what happened here. Now, I still think Haley played an alright game, all things considered, where despite her being the only winner and despite her not being in too much control throughout the game, she still made it to the final 7, which I found pretty impressive. Definitely the best result from a returning winner in Australian Survivor up to this point. But still, I didn't think she was going to win or even get one up on George here. So because of that, she is here at number 7. And with that, there are 6 players left in the game to talk about. And as usual, I'll be ranking them based on how likely I think they're to win based on their edit and current game position. But at number 6, I did decide to go with Matt here, the same person I had at the bottom of last week's ranking, simply because I just don't think he's going to win at this point. Now, he did technically get a spiking content here where he is starting to recognize that he hasn't played this impressive game, that he doesn't have many moves on his resume, which sort of similar to Haley's setting up this potential for him to try to take a shot as well in the very next week. And while he doesn't do so here, I feel like Matt's in a similar spot, actually even a more egregious spot than Haley, where throughout the game, he just has had a very inconsistent edit, to where now, despite him getting this spiking content, I just feel like it's not going to pan out much. And if anything, I think it's just going to lead to him being taken out if he tries to take this shot after this next round. And there is a chance that that could happen, given that Nina and Jerry are on like the exile twist thingy. And there is some potential for him to try to sway over these votes. He may get some ideas, but I just don't think it's going to work out for him. I feel like based on his edit, he's just not being set up to be the one to take out George if George is the one to be taken out. And especially not considering that George himself seems to be picking up that Matt is a bit sketchy, to where he let them out of the Haley blindside, where Matt was completely left out of that plan. So at the end of the day, I just don't think Matt's going to be very successful in taking this shot, and his spiking content is more so him like being set up to be one of the next few boots. And because of that, he is here at number 6. Now we're moving on to number 5, and we have someone very similar to Matt, but here we have Jerry, who I believe had a smaller edit this week compared to Matt, but even so, I just don't think he's going to win, and especially now that he's been shown to be on exile along with Nina. Now, realistically, I don't think that'll matter too much, especially considering he was technically sent there because Nina voted for him in a spot where Nina was voted out unanimously. And even beyond that, I think he's just going to be dragged to the end as a GOAT. I don't really see how he wins the game, although he is more likely to survive this next round compared to Matt, so at least there's that. But realistically, I just don't think he's winning, and because of that, he is here at number 5. Now moving on to number 4, and I actually juggled these next two a little bit, and if I were going strictly off the edit, I would actually have this person above the next person. But if we're taking in information we've been getting from outside the game, I did decide to leave them down here. But here we have Nina. And realistically, Nina's probably also not going to get towards the end of the game. Now, granted, I think Nina has a bit more runway in terms of being the one to take out George if she's the one to do so. However, even then, I just feel like her edit has been largely inconsistent as well. I could very easily see her being one of the next few boots. I feel like if Matt wins immunity again, she'll be the very clear boot. In fact, she was supposed to go home this round until it turned into a non-elimination round. So that by itself is pretty bad. However, the one upside is, again, it does seem to recognize now that she's at the bottom, and she could try to use this to try to flip over Jerry, possibly pull in Matt as well. But more than likely, I think this effort at the next tribal is going to be unsuccessful, where I think either her or Matt will be the next few boots. So because of that, she is here at number 4. Now we're moving on to number 3, and I kind of can't believe this person is this high, and realistically they probably shouldn't. However, we have learned some interesting stuff about this person that does make me put them a little bit higher, but here we have Simon, and the only reason I have him this high is I have been paying more attention to the exit interviews in recent days, and if we are to take these interviews at face value, it actually seems like Simon is the biggest jury threat, where the jury has been talking very highly of Simon a lot, which is very strange considering the game that he's played and the edit that he's gotten, to where it begs the question, could Simon actually win if he gets to the end? Now, realistically, I'm not entirely sure how much to believe these interviews. It's very well that production could just be misleading us, or that the jurors themselves could just be telling a joke, and that Simon may not actually be that big of a jury threat, but considering that we have seen juror after juror now speak highly of him, it does make me stop and think, and I can't entirely ignore that per se. And despite me thinking that he's been a joke throughout a lot of the season, where time after time he just can't get his way, there is still a slight chance that he could be the one to take out George at the end, which, crazy as it seems, like he has been talking about more recently. And considering that's been his big mantra from very early on in the season, it makes me wonder if he'll actually be the one to do it. And if he is the one to do it, will he get the credit for it? Now, Simon, at the end of the day, is still Simon. He has been shown pretty negatively for a lot of it. He has been shown to be a joke for a lot of it, where it's just comical at this point how often he's been left out of the vote, where even during the Haley blindside, he threw his vote on the George, the only person to vote for George, in fact. So it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Now, if I am going based on the show alone, I probably would have him below Nina, as the edit has been dunking on him way more. But if we are factoring in like the exit press, as well as this slight potential for him to take the credit for taking out George if George has a downfall, I did decide to bump him up, believe it or not. Now, realistically, there's still a big gap between the top two, but when we consider the edits and game positions of everyone else, I did decide to have Simon above those other people, which leaves him here at number 3. Now we're moving on to number 2, and it's the same top 2 as last week, and I did have a debate. However, I did decide to keep with my order from last week. So at number 2, we do have George, who did have a bit of a bounce back here, where he was ultimately the one to take out Haley so quickly to recognize that Haley was starting to potentially be a threat against him. And he also gets to talk about Matt potentially be seeing someone against him as well. So I think this was a better look for him compared to last week. However, at the end of the day, I still think there is a big concern that he could just be taken out towards the end. And despite him playing the best game by far of the players still left, there is still a chance that he could still lose a jury vote if the jury is to be believed based on their interviews, as crazy as it sounds. So it's that hesitation that makes me leave him here at number 2 again, although I will say that I am higher on him now than I was at the time made last week's video. So, but all things considered, I did leave him here at number 2. And now, at number 1, the person I believe is the most likely to win Australian Survivor at this point is still Liz. And again, I had a debate between this, as George did technically have a better week here, while Liz took more of a backseat. In fact, I don't think she got really much of anything this week. And considering that we are now entering the endgame, you would think that Australian Survivor of all shows would want to be propping her up, even if she is taking more of a backseat. But I am willing to give her the benefit of the doubt simply because I think this could be justified in a way, considering that she did say that she was biding her time. And this week didn't really see much movement towards George being undermined here, where the Haley blindside went off largely without a hitch. And then even with the latest vote, we had Nina being voted out unanimously, only for the twist to come into play. However, there's still plenty of potential for her to get more next week, especially with the endgame approaching. You have Nina and Jerry both on exile right now, with a shot of Nina flipping over Jerry, or at least making him more seriously consider taking out George in the future. You have Matt there as well. And while I did say that Matt and Nina are unlikely to get their way at this next round to where one of them will probably go home, I do think Final Five presents an interesting opportunity here where Liz could potentially pull in like the two remaining people between Simon, Nina, and Matt and cause a 3-2 vote here, which would be pretty interesting. So there is still the potential for a George split to happen within this next week. And I think between the people that are the most likely to be the ones behind this potential move between her, Matt, Simon, and Nina, I think Liz could potentially benefit the most out of this move and would probably be the most effective at getting this plan running. So it's for all those reasons I did decide to leave Liz here at number 1, despite her relative lack in content. So because of that, she is here at number 1. And there we go, that will do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe, it really helps out with the channel. And I'll be back again next week to update the power rankings, so stay tuned for that. And obviously there'll be a jury scenarios video right before the finale, so stay tuned for that as well. Survivor 44 is well underway at this point, so I'll be doing weekly power rankings of that as well, so check that out. Big Brother Canada is also underway, and I'm doing coverage of that as well, so if you watch that, be sure to check that out. And if you haven't already, be sure to join my Discord server, which I'll leave a link to join in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming your way, but for now, that's the video. See ya.